Welcome, folks. Welcome back yet again for another great episode of the Auto Trends podcast. I'm your co-host Gideon Williams, and as always, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. We are really fired up to just talk a lot about things in the industry, things that are happening. We've had so many great guests, and believe it or not, this is our 28th episode, and so voila, 28th episode is right here, right now, and it's happening at this very moment. We look forward to so many more episodes of the Auto Trends podcast where we are bringing you cutting edge insights, the future of what's happening with automakers as we keep an eye on them. And then how does that impact the parts business? How does that impact distribution, manufacturers, sellers, and what's that model look like? Are some of your big e-tailers being overthrown by the changes of technology in the network? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it, and we're going to be hopefully first to talk about it on the Auto Trends podcast. But before we get into some of the details today, I just want to say, hey, Lucas, what's up? Welcome back, man. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Gideon. Yeah, great to see you again, and some exciting stuff going on. I think over the last few weeks, look how busy we've been. So that's incredible. Let's keep this going, and yeah, lots to talk about today.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like the days just keep on flowing by. I mean, even when we kicked off the Auto Trends, it was crazy. Like, January, I said, we're going to kick this off. It's really going to be for the industry. It's about leveling it up. And it's just been so awesome. We've been so busy. We have so many great conversations, so many great meetings. Everything's about leveling up the industry end to end. And also here to announce just right around the corner, the launch of the 2W Foundation, man, really to help the installers, help the mechanics. We were talking a lot about really being kind of a giving arm back into the industry. Technicians are a dying breed, but we have to have them. We need them really, really bad. And I think they've been
Absolutely.
overlooked. And so I know we've been doing a lot of work on the 2W Foundation, really to just help deliver and give back as we develop the Auto Trends podcast and everything else that we've got going on. So I agree. It's awesome. And it's great to be back. We're excited.
Yeah, no, there's so much I think that people don't see in the background. This is minuscule to compare to what we're doing. I think on a day-to-day basis, and we've got, I think within the next couple months, let's say probably worst case scenario, but we're some amazing sponsors coming up for the Auto Trends podcast, and like you say, the foundation stuff, and so really, I mean, it's just going to grow and expand, from here. So this is just kind of a hint, I would say, what the next 3 4 2 3 months, let's say, have. I think our viewers are going to see some drastic changes with what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, we're only going to forge on, march on, and it's only going to get better and better.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I look back when I first got into the industry, I remember just an alarm bell going off in my head. And I felt like the technicians of this great industry are overlooked at every level. They're overlooked by the sexy sales guy at the manufacturer. They're overlooked by the sexy car salesman, the everything else right in between. And I don't know. I don't know why. I just feel we both feel very strongly about that's kind of a part that we want the 2W Foundation to really focus on, amongst other things, right? I just think it's a great cause. And, as we have guests come on the show, any donations that are basically pledged to the 2W Foundation are going to go to that. And so we're really excited about that. But without further ado, I think we just continue to march on, and everything's really automotive focused. And, not to change the subject or pivot the subject, but Toyota, woohoo, 15 billion, slap on the wrist here. Have they
Whoops.
been falsifying their safety test? It looks like they have.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you look at these types of things, and it's always interesting, right? I mean, before, obviously, Volkswagen years ago, had their issues, and you'll kind of wonder nowadays. I mean, we got such fast news cycles that
Oh, God.
we kind of get through this. I mean, look at their profits; they had record profits, obviously.
Yeah.
So will this really affect them? I mean, everybody knows Toyota. I mean, everybody knows Toyota for quality. They know it for reliability. They know it. So, I mean, this could be. I mean, I would guess that it's going to be a quick blimp as a news cycle. Obviously they're going to have to do something to rectify it, but I don't think this is going to be anything that's going to slow them down with their momentum, and I expect probably record profits again next year.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because
Yeah.
I feel the same way. People forget quick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the news
Yep.
cycle, it's a flywheel. It's a revolving door, you know? I mean, just think of the last 10 years. I mean, people forget so fast. And I do think we should forget, but also, it's like, people can just, get a slap on the wrist kind of, and we march on our way. But I agree with you. I think Toyota, I've always been intrigued by Toyota, and I think I've shared this story with you. My granddad's first vehicle was a Toyota. Bless him, man. He passed away at 99, World War II veteran. So shout out to him and all the great veterans that
Absolutely.
serve our country and around the world, right? But I remember distinctively, and actually I said this in the speech when he passed away. He said, "Great." He said, "Gideon," he goes, "Toyota's the best car you could ever buy, money could buy," and it always stuck with me to this day. And although I drive a Hyundai Palisade, because shout out to Hyundai and Genesis and Kia, they're putting out some great products, and I want to give them kudos, packed with technology. But Toyota's always had this strong brand, and they've always been just, when you think of Toyota and Lexus, you think of quality engineering, you think of sound manufacturing, you think of, we have paid attention to the details. And,
Yep.
so I agree. Although we're having some issues on them falsifying some of their safety records, I certainly think maybe a mother of two, or maybe somebody who really cares a lot about safety. I'll be perfectly honest, when I
Yep.
buy a car, I don't give a shit about the safety. I actually don't even look at it.
Right.
But it will impact some buyers, but I don't think largely, I agree. I don't think it'll be a big problem. I think they'll actually wiggle out with record.
I highly agree. And I mean, even during my time in the Middle East, I used to have a Toyota Land Cruiser, and obviously that's great for going through the desert and the dunes and whatever you need to do. But again, yeah, when you talk about Toyota, when I think of Toyota, I don't think of sexy cars. My Land Cruiser was a beautiful looking truck, let's say from the outside, and you get into it, drives like a dream, but nothing fancy. I didn't have obviously the top model, but it was nothing fancy inside. But man, did it run well, no issues with it, comfortable, drove like a dream. But yeah, I associate Toyota with quality, with safety, with reliability, with, they just have that niche of the market, I think. And I think they'll continue to do that. And when these types of reports come out, not that I disbelieve it, but I do take it with a grain of salt. I don't think that Toyota's going around trying to try to skip steps and falsify things, really on purpose. I would find that very, very hard to believe that the entire organization said, right, let's all get together and kind of fuck this up, and we're gonna, play games here. It's not worth it for them. So do I think there was probably a problem somewhere? Sure. But was it a large organizational collaboration on it? No, I don't believe that.
Well, I agree with you there. I totally agree. I mean, I don't know why, but I've always felt like they operate. First off, I don't know if you've ever been to Japan. I've been there fairly extensively, and traveled through there. I thought the Japanese people were amazing. I loved them. I loved them. I thought they were awesome.
Yep.
That whole country, the cleanliness, the order, and I don't know, Lucas, if you have ever watched, like, I know this is kind of off topic, but Japanese, well, Little League World Series, right? The Japanese baseball team, even Korean baseball team, they're very much a part of the code, right? They live by a code of ethics and honor.
They do.
And I remember watching these Japanese baseball kids practice, and everything it's so military, but everyone just falls in line. It's very orderly.
It is.
And even the language, right? When you look at Korean or Japanese, the culture and how their language is laid out, it's actually hierarchical, right? I think
Right.
when we look at English is more of a horizontal language. Whether you're older or younger than me, I kind of speak with you in the same manner. And also, I think the English language, it provides us how the language is structured in a way that if you're older than me, I should respect, the hierarchy. I still can give you shit, or I can still, talk back and be a dick. I mean, just look what happens in North America, right? I mean,
Exactly.
the newest kids they're now thinking their dogs and cats are like, I don't even know what the hell's going on.
No, exactly.
But yeah, but I just recall that, and I associate that with Toyota and the brand.
Yep.
And so I agree. I mean, I think when you start to look at it, and just for like listeners, and you have no idea what happened with Toyota, It's honestly pretty simple, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. Sure, they got into themselves with a little bit of a pickle of a fine, but they're a very big company. They admitted. So here it is. Toyota admitted to using timers rather than crash sensors to set off airbags, and they knowingly did it. Right. So they basically
Right.
said, look, we want these crash ratings to be great. The sensor's going to go off, but we really needed to go off at 30 seconds. And maybe it went off at 37, but they put a timer in there so it went off at the right time. Right. I don't know. I mean, I don't think as a consumer, you really need to look into it much. Certainly they'll take corrective action. And my guess is that they'll be back up and running quickly. But to your point on the vehicles that are non-sexy, the Prius, right? They rolled out the Prius. I don't know if you remember that. That was really a cutting edge gas sipping. And I think Prius drivers still have a bad name for themselves, and they probably always will, just because it's kind of a cheesy, goofy, quiet, that's just a persona. But hey, that's Toyota, man. And I love it I love them for it.
No, exactly. And even the parts that are coming out of Japan, you know what I mean? Like you were talking about the cultural sort of thing. Here, living in Southeast Asia and stuff like that, and in Asia, I know lots of my friends are Japanese business owners, both in Japan and over here. And the one thing I do, like you say, admire with them is they're very precise. I mean, if they've got a job, let's say, even if you're talking a Japanese restaurant, and the Japanese guy, he's makes sushi. That's the only fucking thing he makes. And he is the best sushi dude, and he's been making sushi since he's been, 10 years old. And he concentrates just on making the best sushi. He doesn't make the rice, he doesn't make the noodles, he doesn't make whatever else. He's the sushi guy. And the other thing I've really noticed with them is they really band around each other in companies. You may not fit in a certain spot or not doing a great job, but they're very loyal to their customers, to their staff, and they'll say, okay, Gideon, you're not doing great over here. This might not be the best fit, but we're going to move you over here. But I know just from speaking to them that, but I mean, firing you is really not an option. I mean, that would be a very, very drastic measure they would ever have to take just to, toss you aside sort of thing. So I've got a lot of respect for them, and that kind of boils over to Toyota.
Well, I agree. And as we look at Toyota, I would love to just do like a big, if I was in college again, I would love to do a big report on Toyota. However, I never knew I was going to be in automotive, or else that's all I would have studied. But I find it funny. So Koji, I hope I'm saying this right, Koji Sato, he's a first year CEO. And, I just find it interesting. First year CEO, they start to look at a blockbuster fiscal year, 30 billion in net profit. That's incredible. Amazing. 30 billion in net profit. Obviously, this is a global company. Obviously, they're producing at scale, at a very large scale. But I just find that awesome, right? First year CEO, you're obviously doing something right. And I don't think when you're first year CEO, you're making massive moves. So this could have been a combination of past leaders that have helped them parlay it. But I think that parlays into our first kind of area that we've talked about before. And, is EV the way? Has the government gotten a little bit over their skis in forcing people's hand with EV? Like, because, where Toyota's R&D and research has gone is hybrid. They've been massive hybrid producers. Here stateside, I have multiple buddies who are actually the principal dealer owners of Toyota dealerships. And I talked to them in great length about what's selling, what's not. Like, I'd love I love learning from, like, I want to go to the low guy on the totem pole and ask him. I don't really care what the top guys say, but my point is I want to know what's happening. And, they say, look, yeah, they are pushing some EV and EVs into their lot. And he goes, if you look at our vehicle list, the vehicles that are the most days on our floor, whatever you want to call it, is the EV. And I just think that's an interesting model, because we have a lot of automakers that have been looking at EV for quite some time. But the reality of it is I think this is a combination of past leadership from Toyota and the past organization of saying, hey, hello world, we skipped from the ICE, internal combustion engine, which is a gas guzzling, gas running vehicle, to the hybrid model, to where we can use less fuel and we can have a rechargeable battery. I don't have to plug it into any grid. And that's probably going to be the next step. And I still think we have 20 years of that model. I think 100% we have. I mean, what is it, 2024? I would say 2040 is probably still going to be higher. Maybe that's hard. I can't predict that. That's really hard to say because EV, you never know how things develop with technology. But so I think when you start to look at record profits, I think there's a lot to say about that. I think that they've really hit a home run in many ways.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. And on the on the EV topic, I think we obviously talk about this a lot, but I think there's just so much misinformation and disinformation, and people really don't know what the truth is with it, and still don't really understand it. And I'm pointing at myself included in that. And you're thinking, well, okay, let's save the environment. That's all great. That's all fine. But I mean, we're accustomed. That's gonna be a gradual shift, and I think you're right with your timeline. It's not something we're going to see, flip overnight. We're very familiar with going to a gas station, filling up with gas. We're familiar with the parts. We're familiar with how they work. They're reliable. We're talking about Toyota selling how many cars, and just as human beings, I think we like that reliability. you know um Obviously, the younger generation, I think there is a push there where, okay, let's save the environment, let's do all this sort of stuff. But I think the negative aspect with that, with the government pushing things on people, is people don't know how, if it's a serious issue or if it's not. I'm not saying it isn't, I'm not saying it isn't, but really, are we going to save the planet if we all suddenly start to drive an EV tomorrow? I don't think that's the case. Um, and again, I'm not talking as an expert on it, but I would myself wouldn't feel comfortable, let's say, buying one right now until it's a little bit farther down the road. There's better charging stations. They charge longer, they charge faster. Once that's maybe all ironed out, and again, I don't think that's going to be a year or two. That's, again, I agree with you, probably 5-10 years down the road till we have a solid product where everything is reliable. We've got the mileage on it. We've got the fast charging. We've got all these different things.
Well, and I mean, it just supports, I think, what we've talked about in the past, and I think it supports consumer behavior. I love the innovation of everything, no matter what. Certainly in automotive, I'm just such an innovative gook, or I guess whatever, for lack of a better word. I just love to see this really kind of move forward. But like McKinsey and Co. I mean, that's a big firm that runs surveys and tests, and they really kind of understand the market in all verticals, right? They're a very large company.
Yep.
And I found very interesting is, so when we look at EV, 40% of 40% of US EV buyers will go back to a combustion engine, right?
Exactly.
So that tells me that for every 10 people that go in and buy an EV, only 6 of them are saying, yeah, I'd buy an EV again. But where I would get really granular in that research is how many of those are Tesla versus alternative options, right?
That's right.
Because if you look at Fisker is a new EV startup, and they are going through massive cuts, massive layoffs. I've actually talked with many people who are at Fisker, who it's an EV startup at the end of the day. And so what we're seeing is that Tesla has done such a good job to own that EV kind of market. My guess is if it's 10 people that go out and buy an EV, 4 of them say, I will go back to a combustion engine. My guess is 5 of those customers are going to go to Tesla. Therefore,
Absolutely.
only 10%, one customer out of the 10 would likely go to a Rivian or a Mercedes-Benz or another automaker that has an EV. But
Yep.
you really need reliability. I think that if
Yep.
your EV is not reliable, I just think you're like, it's so hard already to earn consumers and grow market share that if
Absolutely.
you fail quick, you also, you fail fast. Recover. But the best customer is the customer that we already have, you know,
Exactly.
and I think when you look at the longevity of, say, like a Toyota or automakers that really do it well, I would probably put Subaru in that same category. They have a great following. Jeep has a great following, although I think the quality of Mopar, I think the quality is not great, right? I think if you talk to technicians, and I love talking to them, and you ask them what vehicle is ones that won't go over, make it to 100 or 200,000 miles, most of them will say they're Chrysler, Jeep, or Dodge or Rams. Unfortunately, that's
Yep.
just a reality. But
Yep.
I think that's interesting, right? So it supports the total picture of what automakers are doing, and it's just complete support that I think hybrid is the next step. If I'm an automaker and I look ahead, I really want to invest heavily in hybrid. And if you take it one step further and you look at the aftermarket parts distribution world, which follows your automakers because it's the parts replacement side of the business, I would also be looking at all of the hybrid replacement parts, because many of these hybrids will then be out of warranty at, say, 6 years. And we all know the data is very clear. When a vehicle goes out of warranty, it goes right into your market, your independent repair facilities, because it's cheaper. And so I think those are macro data points that we really have to look at as an industry and know. I think hybrid's the next model, and I think a lot of it is Toyota's leading the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what you're talking about Tesla and stuff there, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I personally wouldn't go out if I was interested in purchasing an EV, go out to one of these brand new startup automakers that are just getting into the industry and saying, "Hey, try one of mine." That would be the last thing I would personally do right now. And again, we were talking about focus and that earlier. I mean, you look at Tesla and you're saying, "Wow, really they are to me the market leader in that." And they're saying, "Right, this is what we do. This is what we manufacture. We're going to be the best at it." And, they've been doing it the longest. And, if I have a problem, I would trust that I could go to Tesla and solve the problem. I just have that, I am a Tesla fan. As far as the company goes, I'm an Elon Musk fan. But I think that's important, and they've earned, I think, that credibility. So to me, absolutely, if I was going to buy an EV, number one, I would go there, and I think you're right. Anybody else who has been in that market and is going to repurchase something else, I think they'll go down that path as well. And you'll see, I think, within the next few years, them become more and more dominant within the market as it grows. I think they'll just get larger and larger and be more successful.
Well, and it's an interesting point because if you look at their model and how they've gone to market, I think it's awesome. They don't have a dealership with all their cars, right? So if you look at historical context, the franchise dealer, they're franchises, right? You can buy a franchise, then that particular automaker sends you a bunch of cars, and you buy them, and then you sell them, right? You have the lot, you have all these things. But what Tesla did is their go-to-market approach was very simple. Is they almost want it to be like a boutique shopping experience, right? There's Teslas in shopping malls. There's Teslas in places that typically automakers never have gone. And we had, gosh, a few months ago, we had Jonathan Lampros on, really high profile dealer consultant, and he even said, and I quote, the combustion engine and automakers should be thanking Elon Musk that he did not go into the combustion engine. He said because he would have put everybody out of business because of the forward thinking and just that mentality. But like when you look at the Tesla shopping experience, the local town center that live is near me, I can go right into Tesla, and then I can go out of Tesla, and then I can go right into Tacovas and get some boots. Right? It's that shopping type of
Exactly.
feel. And I can go across the road and go to Louis Vuitton and have a jaw that drops on the floor because they should not be selling a leather purse that much.
Right.
But regardless,
Exactly. Exactly.
but regardless, that's the point. Is he really wanted this to be kind of a high-end luxury type of item? And if
Yep.
you study economics and you study the business at any level, we either know you have to be the cheapest or you have to be the most highest price.
Exactly.
The guy in the middle struggles to really win, right?
Right.
Because you have brand identity problems. And I think that that's the number one problem that we see in a lot of automakers that struggle. And I'll give you an example. I'm sorry, Mitsubishi. I think that's kind of one that you don't really know where they sit. I would probably put Nissan in the category, but they're
Yep.
large. They have the Infinity brand. But so that's kind of the point, is it's really important that you know who your brand is. But to your point, JLR, Jaguar Land Rover dealers, and this is interesting, they're preparing to sue the automaker. They're preparing
Right.
to sue them because of their EV model. What Jaguar Land Rover did is they basically tried to take their EV division of the organization and go around franchise dealers to cut them out. Why? Because they're trying to follow that Tesla type model where very much it's a boutique, very much we're a high end, which
Absolutely.
that's the biggest problem, is that now you're fighting your entire franchise dealer network, because now you don't have the nimbleness to go around them. But when you look at Tesla's approach out of the gate was, I'm not going to
Yep.
do what all you guys have done. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I think that's a little bit of
That's right.
tribute to Elon Musk's thinking. That's kind of how he thinks. He's a very much
Absolutely.
an independent fuck you thinker. I love that.
Yeah. Exactly, because and I mean, look where the consumers are now, even in the auto parts, that we're dealing with every day. The consumers are online. I mean, they're not going into auto parts shops. You know what I mean? I mean, you're not going to say, right, a really good idea today is going to be, I'm going to open up a brick and mortar auto parts shop with a ton of inventory and a ton of stock, and I'm not going to sell online, but I'm going to open up this beautiful little shop that people are going to drive specifically only to my location to buy it. Not going to happen. It's just not anymore. And you made a very good point. Teslas being in the malls. That's where the people are. If people want to see a Tesla, a lot of people have never seen a Tesla in their life. They go to the mall, they see this beautiful Tesla sitting out in the middle of the mall or in this showroom, and they say, "Wow, I've never even had an opportunity to see one," and they're looking at it there. Now, would those same people get in their car and drive to a specific Tesla dealer that might be 5 kilometers away, knowing they're not going to buy one, but just to look at one? No chance. Um, and then the boutique sort of model, we talked about it, I think, a couple episodes. Again, you look at Apple. I mean, that's their model. It's like walking into an art gallery when you go into a mall. This big, beautiful, open space, light colors. And when you go in there, you feel like, you're proud. You're walking in there thinking, look, I'm a big shot. I'm going in here to buy something. And they just give you that feeling, right from the store experience to their packaging. They just have that trust. You're getting a quality product, whether you're buying a cord from Apple. You're just simply buying a little charging cord. It comes in beautiful packaging, which is easy to open. You're not struggling to open it. To use it is so easy. It's user friendly, but it's the exact same thing. So the other automakers certainly have to fall in line with that, and the dealers need to understand that, and the parts companies.
Yeah,
This is
well, and
this is
that's
the
that.
future.
Yeah, and you're so right. And even and that's, I think, really a big differentiator, because Tesla doesn't have franchise agreements, right? You go in and buy a Tesla, or you go into a boutique, you look at the Tesla on the show floor, you're like, wow, this is great. Hey, can I buy this? And they say, no, you can't buy
Yep.
this. We're going to go ahead and get you on a list, and we're going to deliver this car
Right.
right to your doorstep, right? So
Right.
it's sight unseen. So you're not versus a traditional dealer. You're going in, you're driving the car, you're test driving, and then you're buying that same vehicle. And so,
That's right.
I also think like the just in time inventory model, I know that's kind of a very common thing. That's what it allows you to do as well. When you begin to sell like that from a vehicle perspective, is it's just in time inventory, right? I don't have to have an eyesore on my balance sheet that says, holy shit, I got millions and millions of dollars of inventory just sitting there. The just in time inventory model really works well. And as you kind of understand the demand is there, now you can have your production output say X, because with a purchase like that's large, and again, all vehicle purchases are kind of moving into the north of $50,000 range, right? I bought a 2020 Hyundai Palisade just because I love the car and I was packed with technology. At the time I bought it, 3 years old, I paid $38,000 for it, right?
Right.
That's a pretty large sum of money, in my opinion, for a vehicle.
Yep.
But that's really cheap, like
Right.
there's things that are 50, 60, 70. So, and I think what's going to happen is, I don't think this is going to impact the parts distribution model much, but I do think from a distributor perspective, I think your eyes and your investment and your energy should be focused on more of hybrid, working with manufacturers that are really focused on the hybrid model, because I think the hybrid model will be around for the next 20 years. And until the EV side has really proven itself, I just wouldn't invest a ton of money if I'm a parts manufacturer in the aftermarket or a distribution company. I just wouldn't invest heavily in that. It doesn't make any sense. But I'm sure people are going to do it. I don't know, Everett, speculation and all this other crap. But it's obvious to me, right? It's very point blank. But we'll see kind of where that nets out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but I definitely agree with you 100% on that. And just, yeah, keep focused, but yeah, definitely don't, this year, next year, within the next 4 years, if you are an aftermarket parts seller, an e-tailer, whatever you are in that space, don't look at things right now and think, right, I'm going to scrap my aftermarket stuff and I'm going to completely throw, all my eggs in the basket of EVs, because, I think you'll be waiting a long time. And obviously, we're going to have some special shows on this upcoming, Gideon, I think. And you're looking at, that's a complete different model when you're looking at parts for an EV, obviously. There's
Yeah.
20 some odd parts, in there, which is a lot more complex than it is obviously selling, these aftermarket parts. So I think
Yeah.
that'll be a completely different market altogether.
Well, one interesting Hage Partners, and if you're not familiar with who Hage Partners is they're basically a advisory firm on buy sales. So if you're in the market to buy, 10 dealerships, they would be a type of firm that you consult with. Or if you have a lot of money and you just want to get in the automotive business, you go to a Hage Partners, right? They're a consulting firm. And what they did is they penned a letter to Tesla and the CEO Elon Musk, and with a plea to adopt the franchise dealer model, right? And the reason they did that, for one, it's protecting their business, but two, they see the future as basically becoming, wow, this is just not the model of the future, and it puts a lot of things at risk, right? It puts franchise dealers at risk. I mean, we talked JLR, Jaguar, the Land Rover deal on them basically being their franchise dealers suing the automaker because they're going around them with EV. But even, Musk kind of shot that down virtually immediately, which I think is awesome. And I love it because he just said, people just buy these things online. Right.
Right. Exactly.
And when you're talking about a new vehicle, I don't need you to test you can go, test the vehicle or test drive it. But more importantly, once you've test drive the vehicle, you don't have to buy that same vehicle. I'll send you a new one that no one's
That's right.
ever touched. I'll send you a new one that, has, whatever is needed. And so I just kind of think that that's an important piece of, what the future looks like in the industry.
That's right. No, no, no. No, I think Gideon, you look at the purchase of these EVs and any sort of car. I mean, this is probably likely going to be the second largest purchase, that anybody's going to make, really behind their house, and then it's a car. I mean, there's fortunate people out there like Gideon that has helicopters and planes and all sorts of shit. Most of us don't have that, but so the second largest one, is going to be your car. So that experience, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I really expect a wow sort of experience. I want to walk it, whether if I'm walking into a dealership or I'm walking into a shopping mall to look at a car. Really, you better be kissing my feet, begging me to buy this thing, because I work hard for my money. So if I'm going to spend it with you, I really expect that customer experience. And I think you've got guys like Tesla and Apple and these kind of companies that really understand those experiences, and those are the guys that are going to thrive.
Yeah.
These Mickey Mouse new, dealers, or even dealers that have been around a long time, and you walk into their showroom and there's nothing, nobody greets you, nobody offers you a coffee to sit down. You know what I mean? That people are really expecting an experience more so than anything else. And it's the same thing with the car. People buy things for an experience, not because it's amazing. Why do people buy Starbucks? If I'm walking around with a Starbucks cup, I do like their coffee, but I feel a certain experience. I feel a certain level of pride when I just spent how much money on this stupid cup of coffee that, fine, it's good, but it's just holding that cup, drinking out of it. People are like, oh, fucking, he's got a Starbucks coffee. It's just that experience. So that'll
Yeah.
become
No,
more and
I,
more important.
I totally agree, and I think we're going to continue to keep a pulse on what automakers are doing. I think the reason it's important is because it impacts the parts side of the business as well. And I know we're heavily involved in that, and supporting every aspect of the industry. But I will say, as we wind this thing down and we come about up to time, If you're a listener, the best way to support the Auto Trends podcast is like and subscribe. We really love what we do. We wouldn't do it if we didn't. We wouldn't be here if we weren't here for the right reasons in the industry. The 2W Foundation, again, the foundation that we have kicked off to help support our technicians and really use that as the vehicle to give back. More information coming on that. But please like and subscribe what you do. And as always, if you're looking to come in and you have an initiative or you want to share some insights into what you do and you really feel like you could bring some value, Lucas and I are really not scary guys. We love what we do. And we gladly would have you guys on to talk about what you're doing, your initiatives. We love seeing a different perspective and a different set of eyes on maybe the same topic. So don't be afraid. And also, if you're a company and you want to tell this history of your company and the story of how you have got to where you are, we'd love to even run a series for you guys. We always do ask that you look at the 2W Foundation to help kind of make a donation to help the technicians in the industry. And there's going to be more information rolling out on that. But as always, folks, we are the voice of the industry. This is the Auto Trends podcast, and we are out.